Hi everybody! My name is Caroline and I was an assistant with TAPIF from 2017 through 2019. During my stint in France, I chose to stay in the same community, a beautiful city called Compiègne. It's about an hour north of Paris, and I just loved it. And I loved it so much, especially in my second year, because new assistants were coming in, and I hope I was able to help them. At any rate, I did try and help them. Hopefully they like that. I honestly question whether they did sometimes. But at any rate, I do think I have a couple of insights and tips and tricks that I would love to share with all of you. So without further ado, here's my list of 15 things you might want to think about packing. Number 1, thank you cards. You don't have to wait until the end of the year to say thank you to people. Maybe you want to say thank you to your landlord or just a teacher who is helping to carpool you, something like that. I found that French people are pretty on top of things in terms of sending thank yous if you give them a gift, so I like to just have them on hand just in case you want to stay on the good footing with everybody. I was looking for cards and they're actually really hard to find over there. You can find thank you cards, but if I wanted to find a nice one and if I wanted to find one with English on it, you don't have to do that, but I thought that would be fun. Regardless, I could only find individual cards for about 4 or 5 euros a pop. So I had a lot of people I wanted to say thank you to, and that just wouldn't have been budget friendly. I ended up ordering a bulk pack of cards off of Amazon for about 20 euros. I think I got something crazy like 36 cards. I ended up giving them out to other assistant friends. I'm glad I had something nice to present to them, but they weren't the nicest cards. So year 2, I went to CVS ahead of time. They weren't these cards, those are somewhere, but yeah, it was just nice to have that pack. Number 2, deodorant. I found the French deodorant a bit confusing and I didn't really like it. I'm trying to remember if it was normally roll-on or spray-on, but at any rate, it wasn't like the stick that I am super used to here. I remember it happened a lot of times where I would be at my boyfriend's house and he was French, and if it's his place, so he leaves his stuff where he wants to, and I would see what I thought was like artisanal soap on the vanity, and it was not soap. French deodorant is so weird. It's like this clear bar that you run underwater and then rub on your armpit, and I can't tell you, I promise you it happened at least a few times where I thought that was soap, and it definitely was not soap. So yeah, whatever brand you like here, just bring maybe an extra stick of it, just in case you run out while you're over there. Number 3 is a combination lock. So I'm guessing you'll want to take advantage of the opportunity to be in Europe to travel a bit. And one of these guys is so handy if you're staying in a hostel or wherever it may be. Maybe you just have a lot of luggage and you want to connect something to something else. One of the downsides, though, of having a lock like that is, at least mine is kind of heavy. So what I would do if I was taking flight somewhere, I wouldn't put it in my bag, I would put it on my pants. And you know what, who cares? I'm sure it looks stupid, but it helped me not spend 45 euros on an extra bag. Number 4, and this might seem like crazy advice, especially if you're packing your suitcase right now, I would recommend bring a yearbook if you have one. In France, they don't have yearbooks, and at least in my experience, the students and the teachers were quite curious about, is life over there really like in the movies, at least in terms of high school. They've all seen cheerleaders and prom and all this crazy stuff, and it's fun to show them, in a way, yes, in a big way, no. Depending on what level you're teaching, this might not be worth it. If you're in primary, maybe the kids would like to see this, but I was working in college, so middle school level. My kids loved looking at mine, and I can't tell you how many times I would use this for my lessons. I ended up just leaving this at the school full time while I lived over there. I actually brought 2 yearbooks in my first year, my middle school one and my high school one, and if anybody's curious, they liked the high school one way better. This thing is massive, it's in color, it has all the different activities and things like prom and signatures, all that good stuff. Oh god, all that good stuff. 10 out of 10, this was worth the extra 5 pounds in my baggage. I actually ended up putting this in my carry-on, which was a backpack, which killed my back for about a day, but it let me bring other stuff in my suitcase. My number 5 idea is a speaker. a Bluetooth speaker. I have a lot of good memories of France, and I have a lot of memories that were made even better because we had music going and we were sharing something. So I'll put the link up to my specific one if anybody's interested in that. That'll be down below, but moving to a new country, you can't bring all the comforts of home with you, but music is a wonderful thing that fills up a room, and it's so comforting at the same time, so I would really recommend having one of these bad boys. So keeping on the theme of tech, number 6 is anything you might need to recharge things. So I would recommend investing in a good adapter. I got mine just online. I bought it specifically because it had 2 USB ports, which is kind of stupid, but I guess when you have this thing plugged in, sometimes it does cover up an outlet if you're lucky enough to find a double outlet. I also really like this one because it's so light and it's compact. My first year in France, I kept having to ask my friend Tessa if I could borrow hers, which was a lot like this. The one I brought, okay, so imagine this about 2/3 this size. I don't know why it was so massive, but it was heavy and it would like fall out, especially if I was trying to charge my phone on the train. It was just useless, so if you have one that gives you headaches, just invest in a new one. It's like 10 bucks. Now here's something I would always ask to borrow from my friends. It's a mobile charger. Mine died on me. It's super old, maybe my first week in France, so thank you all my wonderful friends who would let me borrow theirs. Finally, maybe bring an extra cord or two. One if you lose yours, or if you have a friend over and they could borrow one. I have this really handy rainbow charger. It has all these different endings on it, and it plugs in with one USB input, so I really like that, and it was quite handy when I would have friends over. Number 8, make yourself up a little first aid kit. So this is not what I brought year 1, but it built into this. I found this little pouch. That's another story while I was in France. Whatever. Depending on where you're from, it might be a bit of an adjustment, experiencing what it's like to get sick in France. A lot of the medications that we have just over the counter or off the shelf in the USA are by prescription only in France, including ibuprofen and Tylenol, or acetaminophen. So to save space, when I made my first aid kit, I compressed everything. So, I got some Mucinex and some Alka-Seltzer for colds. I took everything out of the package itself, and then I took a little index card and I wrote, long red pills, that's Mucinex, and you take 1 every 6 hours as you need. That sort of instruction. It just saves you space, and it is such a relief if you ever need to use it. Hopefully you don't need to use it, but in case. Another very handy thing to have is antibiotic cream in case of cuts and band-aids. Don't bring an entire package of band-aids, you probably don't need that. Minimize everything, right? You can always get more of them over there, but it's one of those things that if you don't have them on hand, it kind of sucks when you need it. The last thing I would definitely recommend having in your first aid kit is a thermometer. I never really had to use this my second year, but it's something that my friends did ask to borrow often enough if they were getting sick. It's such an easy way. We have so much stress happening from this big change, and we're going to feel tired just because of the language, and knowing that your temperature is off is a great way to realize, like, oh my god, I think I actually am getting sick. Either way, you should probably rest and drink lots of fluids if you're stressed or if you're actually sick, but come on, it's $10 and it gives you so much peace of mind, so just get a thermometer. It's tiny. Number 9 is a journal. During my second year in France, I got really into a technique called bullet journaling, thanks to a site called Well Ella. I'll be sure to link that down below too. It's just, it's really nice to have that record of these experiences and look back and smile at things that I might have otherwise forgotten. Sometimes it's so hard in the moment, especially I remember my early days just being exhausted and overwhelmed and excited and happy, but oh my god, so tired by the end of the day. But now I'm so grateful for all the times I forced myself to just write for 5 minutes. Like, I would literally just set a timer for 5 minutes and write about something I saw that day or what I was feeling, and I'm so grateful I did that now. And I wish I would have done that more. Number 10 is bring a good jacket. Warmer than you think you're going to need. So before I left, I remember doing a lot of research about the region, like, do I really need this? Do I not? And I remember thinking in terms of jackets, well, I can always layer up. And that's true, like, definitely bring a couple sweaters, sweatshirts, extra layers. But it would have been nice to have a better jacket. Honestly, I would not have hesitated to also bring my big parka that I brought when I lived in Canada for a bit. This is 2-layer, it's waterproof, it's bright green. I am gonna stick out like a sore thumb if I ever wear this in France, but it would have been worth it to be warm. The cold I'm used to, being from the Great Plains, is frigid. It's -40 at least a couple of times per year. Fun fact, that's the only temperature that's the same in Fahrenheit, not Celsius. But yeah, it gets quite cold, but the thing about our cold is that it'll hurt your face and it hurts your lungs when you breathe it in. It's not a humid cold. French cold is a humid cold, so even though the temperature is higher, it's going to seep into your bones and you're just going to feel it everywhere. So if you're hesitating between this coat and that coat or no coat, like, oh my god, please bring a coat. If you're really hard pressed about it and you don't have the space, make that an option when you go over there. Try and check out some thrift stores. I always found a lot of coats in the thrift store for pretty good prices, like 20-30 euros a piece. Yeah, so that might be a good option. So along the same vein, that's 6. Number 11 is bring a good scarf. Yes, they will keep you very warm, but I also used mine as wall decoration. I would put it over my bed like a duvet cover just to spruce things up. This is the exact scarf I brought over, and I haven't worn it in a while. Well, 1, because it's summer, but 2, because it's full of twigs and leaves and a couple of dead ladybugs. I realize that sounds nasty, but you know, spring in France, I would go on lots of picnics, and this is perfect because it's kind of huge and it's kind of ratty to begin with, so I didn't mind. I had a side hustle while I was over there online teaching, and when I was looking for an apartment, it was also a very easy and quick wall decoration. Number 12, you've probably heard or read before. Bring extra copies of all your different forms. This is what I brought both years, and it's ridiculously heavy. Oh, look at that! I have my thank you notes. Ha! See? Don't do it like this. Just find a nice little pocket to put everything in. Use paper clips, keep everything safe. So you'll definitely need at least 5 or 6 copies of your arrêté de nomination. You'll need some copies of your visa. And also when you get to France, you're going to need to take a picture of here's my visa and the stamp of when I entered France or the Schengen area. Sorry if I said that wrong. Hopefully they will put the stamp on the same page, so you know, you flip your passport open and it's a visa sticker stamp. Try and keep that in mind. It's not a big deal if it's not, but it's just more convenient when you go to scan it. Keep around a couple of passport photos. Just have some extras on hand. You'll need this when you go to your orientation. I think it's for the visa process. I know you'll need at least one of them. If you get a pass d'éducation when you're over there, which is a free pass for teachers and technically not assistants, but a lot of us do it. That gets you into a lot of museums and monuments for free, so definitely do that. But when you go, you'll need some passport-sized photos of you. If you plan to apply for CAF, which is the housing assistance that we completely have a right to, and I definitely recommend it, then you'll need info from your taxes for the last 2 or 3 years. Maybe bring a physical copy, otherwise a digital copy should be just fine. When you go to apply for CAF, you can do that online, so if you chose to go that route, digital copy is fine. If you chose to find a CAF office or mail everything in, then maybe you'll want to print something out, because I definitely recommend doing that as soon as you can. You will save yourself hundreds of euros. It may also be required when you go to open a bank account to show your tax documents. In my experience, it wasn't, and then my friend went to the exact same bank, and different banker, but same bank, and she demanded the tax information from the last 3 years. It was a huge hassle. The school had to get involved. It was just a nightmare situation. But at any rate, honestly, err on the side of having too much information versus too little. And finally, this is something that my mom asked me to do. One day we sat down and we made a what if plan. Like, what if something bad happens in the family back home? How would I like to know, and would I like to know which? Yes. So we made out this plan, you know, if anybody got sick or hurt, she would call and text and email me so that I wouldn't miss it. And vice versa, if anything happened to me over there, even if it was just a cold, she wanted to know. So I know that gave her a lot of peace of mind, and it helped me out too. It's just nice to have that conversation ahead of time versus being in an emergency or a difficult situation and not knowing. Number 13, that doesn't look like a 13. Bring along something for a hobby. So we have a 12-hour work week, which is pretty friggin' sweet, but it's nice to have so much free time, but you may get to France and realize that the town you're in is smaller than you thought it might be, or, you know, it's it's not as easy to get around and it's not as easy to visit big things and museums, whatever floats your boat. I brought along my running shoes, which I don't know if you can tell, I have pretty big feet to begin with, but these are kind of clunkers. It was nice knowing how much of my suitcase these were taking up, because that was even more motivation to make use of them, right? Like, I brought this all the way to France for this and they just sit there? No, I better go get my butt out there and go run. In a way, it's kind of nice when you have no other option but to do this one thing that you want to get better at anyway. It was just something other than Netflix to be occupying your time with. I'll get more into that later, but there are definitely some things that you shouldn't bring with you, and Netflix is one of them. I'm a big believer in that. Number 14, bring a luggage scale, and buy one if you don't have one already. These are so handy, and you may be thinking right now, well, I'm just weighing myself on the kitchen scale and that's working fine. That's great, that's what I did in year one, but believe me, it's so nice to have this one when you're moving out at the end of the year and maybe you don't have that kitchen scale anymore. And kitchen scale, oh my god, can you imagine like somebody's crawling up on top of a kitchen scale, a bathroom scale? So you might not have that over there. And two, this is just so handy if you're traveling especially. We have to keep a budget, we don't earn very much as assistants, and you probably don't want to be paying for extra bags if you're traveling, so I found this guy so handy. This was one of the most requested to borrow items among my friends. I'm pretty sure it went to Texas last Christmas because my friend forgot to give it back and then she thought, well, I'll use it going back to France. So again, it's about $12, I think. I'll correct that here if I'm wrong. Completely worth it. The last thing I would recommend bringing is anything you want it to be, really. It's just something that reminds you of home that you love, that makes you happy. Maybe it's a favorite t-shirt, maybe it's hot sauce or taco seasoning, whatever it might be. If it makes you happy, indulge yourself a little bit, you're gonna need it. Just go for it. I think living in a new country, we have just so many moments of scary or self-doubt and what are they thinking of me, what am I doing wrong? So really anything you can have that reassures you, I'd say screw it, like just bring it no matter what the weight is, as long as you fit it in your bag and it brings you joy and it makes you feel like a happier, more confident person and more just like you. Go for it. A couple of the things I brought over are my teddy bear. So I'll get more into this little guy later. This is not the bear I had growing up. It's a bear that's part of a very special project called Bat Bear. It's for a little boy who can't travel, so basically the bear travels for him, and I got involved with this project a few years before I went to France, but I just loved it so much and I wanted to carry that on, so I had a lot of fun bringing my bear over to France with me and felt like I had a little buddy, if that makes sense. Another thing I brought over just because I loved it so much was this pair of boots. As you can see, they're quite decrepit, but these are really special to me. And I just, when I wear them, I just feel so confident and so good and like such a badass. They just have a lot of special memories, including one I made in France. It was an unfortunate scooter incident in Paris. I thought I knew how to brake and I didn't. So obviously I haven't fixed those yet, but who cares? Like, the story is there and I'm having fun with it, and it was just something that when I was by myself in this new place, feeling so scared and like, what am I doing here? I put those up as decoration in my room, which probably looked really bizarre, but it would make me happy to see them. So there you have it, my 15 tips and tricks of things you might want to think about bringing in your suitcase. I'm definitely planning to make more videos like this. I have a couple in the works already. If you like this video, please hit subscribe and hit the bell if you never want to miss one. I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much again for watching. Goodbye!